This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
I'm Roby Brock. Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics. I'm joined by Dr. Steve Addison. He is the Dean of the College of Natural Sciences and Mathematics at the University of Central Arkansas. Good to have you with us.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're going to talk about cybersecurity and just this whole age of cyber attacks and cyber crime that we're in and some things that you guys have going on at UCA. But I want to begin with a current event that was in the news over the weekend. The city of New Orleans declared a state of emergency over cyber attacks. What kind of happened, and is this the new normal for cities?
So it can be the new normal. What happened was they got an attack through their servers, and so as people logged onto their computers when they came into work in the morning, more and more systems began to be affected. So they ultimately had to shut down their entire network and take everybody offline.
That would seem to cripple some city services for, I think, a lot of citizens in New Orleans. Kind of how devastating can something like that be, and who all could it impact?
It could be truly devastating. Very often city services control traffic lights, to control all sorts of infrastructure, so an entire city can quickly grind to a halt. And the more automated a city is, the bigger the problem. In some places you'd have municipally owned hospitals and other facilities which also would be subject to problems.
Yet we are clearly moving towards a more technologically sophisticated delivery of services in that range. So let's talk about what you guys have at UCA in terms of what you were trying to create in terms of the workforce for tomorrow.
So absolutely. Well, one of the things, a number of years ago, I realized that we would need to be working to train students and train people to work in a modern technological society. And so I started looking at the sorts of programs that we would need to add, and one of them that came to the top of the list quickly was cybersecurity, because there are many, many jobs available, many systems to protect, and not many people available for those jobs. Currently, there are 500,000 cybersecurity jobs open in the country. Wow. 1,300, almost 1,400 in Arkansas, and 706 here between Little Rock, North Little Rock, and Conway. And those jobs are pretty much unfillable. We have already almost 5,000 people employed in cybersecurity in Arkansas, and over 2,000 here in Central Arkansas.
What are some of those jobs? Are some of those jobs with private companies that are outsourced to be the kind of the cyber police for companies that don't have a big enough workforce? Are they military jobs? Where do they come from?
So there are military jobs, there are civilian jobs, there are many, many small companies. Smaller industries can't afford to run their own cybersecurity operations, so they typically will contract out the protection that they might need. And so there are a number of companies. Another thing, though, is we have to know how vulnerable a company is. So there are many companies that simply do penetration testing. They call it pen testing. Mm-hmm. And so what they will do is they'll contract with a company and they will try to break into systems by any means possible. Occasionally, in doing that, they run afoul of the law. In Iowa recently, a couple of penetration testers were actually arrested in a county courthouse because they had decided also to test the physical security, and they still have some ongoing issues between the city and the state.
Are these what hackathons are basically what some of these instances are sometimes called, so where they want you to test? So
yes.
Like a company will sometimes ask you to show us how vulnerable we are so that we can make corrections.
Oh, absolutely. We actually do this at UCA on a regular basis. So people are the main problem in cybersecurity. So what we do is a security company will send an email to our faculty, and it will tell them something like they've got a secure message that they need to log on to a particular mailbox to access. And when they do that, they've given up their user ID and their password, and depending on who they are, access to a wide variety of different systems on the UCA campus. Many businesses do this. The first time we did it, I don't think that we had a unit that didn't have somebody respond to the link. They're really good. They look like they're from someone on campus. But what people don't realize is IT people don't ask these questions. They never ask for your password. But it's amazing to me how many people are just willing to give it up because they think it's what they have to do to get a secured message, even though we don't actually have a secured message system that they've ever used.
One of the things that you do for students is you guys have created what's called a cyber range.
Right.
I think a lot of our viewers and listeners would not know what a cyber range is, so kind of describe what it is and how it's utilized.
So absolutely. Yes, we have a cyber range on the UCA campus. It's built by a commercial company with an Arkansas background, Matova Federal. That cyber range is really a large computer server. What it allows us to do, though, is to duplicate the internet. It runs machines that are called virtual machines, which people have used, although they may not realize it. If you've ever used a game emulator or something like that, you've used a virtual machine. And so on the server, we can run more than 400 virtual machines, and that allows us to have 28 user stations and also then to have bots which produce traffic. They run the internet. We have servers and switches, and essentially people can do anything they can on the outside internet inside our cyber range. But we can also release viruses, we can make systems more or less vulnerable, and they can learn to do penetration testing, and they can learn to defend systems. To defend the system, you really have to know how the attacks work. Mm-hmm. And you can't just go out and attack a system willy-nilly because, well, there are laws against those sorts of things. The cyber range allows us to train our students in a legal environment and also to talk to them about ethics and talk about when and where you should be doing these sorts of things and when you shouldn't, because when you teach students new things, the first thing they want to do is go out and try them. Well, on the range, they can do it without breaking the law, which is really useful. But it also allows us to then develop stronger and stronger security on different systems, and so they can see what they might do to protect the systems when they go out and work.
One of the things that has always amazed me about people that create these cyber attacks is you have to be pretty smart and sophisticated to create them.
Yes.
If you are that smart and sophisticated, why are you not utilizing those skills for something that could be as profitable, if not more profitable, by doing something good?
Well, some people do end up doing that. One of the sources of cybersecurity professionals is former hackers. But unfortunately, it's not as hard as people may imagine because you can find the instructions to launch basic attacks on things like YouTube and certainly how to do a basic break-in to a computer system. And although most commercial systems will protect against those easy attacks, most homeowners don't. So many people are running insecure networks. When I look in my neighborhood and getting onto Wi-Fi, you can see that maybe a little more than half of the networks are secure, but the rest are wide open, so anybody could log on to them. And in fact, that's one of the ways hackers gain access to systems. They will log on to somebody's home network, get into their home computer, and then use what access they have to get into other systems. Yeah. So there are many points of vulnerability, and it all comes back to people.
When the governor has put forth the Cybersecurity Task Force, mm-hmm. Not sure what the full mission for the task force is just yet. I mean, I'm sure there's still some development of that. What do you think would be the biggest things that task force needs to undertake?
Absolutely. So it's both computer science and cybersecurity, and one of its major missions is looking at the pipeline, workforce development and the pipeline of employees, but also to ensure that people are teaching the right things. So it's overarching. It will look at all aspects of computer science, computing, and cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is part of what we need to do, but there are efforts going on, particularly in data science in the state as well. But as we develop our information systems, we also have to develop them in a secure manner. So part of this new committee is to make sure that we're looking at all aspects of computing. And cybersecurity is actually a small part, but a critical part, and it's one that in the past has often been ignored because computers and computer networks grew out of scientific and military uses, and networks grew up with the assumption that everybody was a trusted user. So we've added security on afterwards, and in some cases we've been slow to do that. So we'll be making recommendations at a variety of levels to education, both K-12 and higher ed, and also working with industry so that Arkansas has a concerted effort in this area.
I sense that there is no end to the potential job security for the next generation in this field. You talked about the workforce shortages that we're already experiencing, the fact that things are going to evolve so much. I mean, we haven't even touched on 5G coming and how that's going to transform some things too. I guess, are you in any way worried that we won't meet the demand that is out there?
Well, what I'm chiefly worried about is that we aren't meeting the demand at the moment, and the Department of Labor and other entities have projected that many jobs are going to disappear over the next 10 or 15 years. So I think there are opportunities for training new workers, but retraining existing workers who have college degrees. Part of the computer revolution is that it is really automating industries and eliminating jobs. But while it does so, it creates new ones. And so I think that we likely have the workforce that we need, but they don't at this point have the right background. So one of our goals is both to train new employees as they go through the school systems and colleges, but also to take those workers in industries out there where jobs are disappearing to retrain them appropriately so that they can work in cybersecurity or data science or many of the new fields that are growing. There's a lot of things growing up in health-related fields. Surgery is often being done by robots now. So what's going to happen is you'll need people to build and program and maintain those robots. So I think what we're going to be seeing is a growth of many new jobs as a result of these emerging technologies.
Let's just don't go too far with robots and the media, okay? So,
Okay.
All right, Dr. Stephen Addison, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Enjoyed it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all for today's program. I'm Roby Brock. We'll see you next time.